Hi, everyone, and welcome to another 4DMethod 4D user group. Today is November 2nd, 2022. This is meeting number 60. On our agenda today, we're going to review what the 4DMethod user group is. We'll talk a little bit about what's been going on with the happy hour, the 4D happy hour that Kirk Brooks runs. We'll get some 4D news from Jim Sobchak in California. Talk a little bit about the recent online training and continuing online training that's going to be continuing this month from JPR. We'll highlight a few articles in the 4D blog, as well as some recent tech notes in the knowledge base. Ad will be handling that for us. And our special topic today is called 4D in drag and drop. And I'll be handling the demo for today. Then we'll talk about our next meeting on December 14th of this year, the final meeting of the year. So my name is Brent Raymond. I organize the 4DMethod 4D user group. Our website is 4dmethod.com and can be reached at 4dmethod@gmail.com. What we try to do in this user group, online user group, is just to attempt to bring together a scattered community of developers and users everywhere. We're using Zoom, just like the rest of the world, for meetings to allow people to participate from wherever they live or work. And all of the meetings are recorded, and as well as the presentations to be viewed again on the YouTube channel or shared with your friends and family and colleagues. And our goal is just to provide fresh new content and exposure for users and developers everywhere. It's that simple. Just to come together and have a look at something and see what role 4D is playing out in the world. I invite you to be a presenter. This is all of our groups. You can show off your application or your product, plugin, component, just some things that you've been working on. Even if you're not a developer, you can show off how you use 4D in your company or in your institution, as luck may have it. All the dates so far in 2023 are open. You can see them listed there on the page on the 4DMethod site, 4dmethod.com/schedule. Yeah, so you got plenty of time before February to roll up something cool and or just interesting, or just have a moment in the spotlight for yourself. So yeah, so that's what we're trying to do here with the 4DMethod user group. Another great group to be active with is the 4D happy hour. I like to give Kirk a moment to shout out about that if he'd like to.
I would. Thank you, Brent. And I'd like to, once more extend my appreciation to you for giving me this little shout out, and invite anyone who's watching or listening who hasn't ever stopped into happy hour to please do so. And those of you who do, and there are a couple of regular faces that show up here, please keep coming in. I've noticed the last couple of weeks we've had a number of new folks just dropping in and saying hello. Or what's even really kind of more fun is when somebody comes in with a question or a problem or something, and we relish throwing something up on the screen and looking at other people's code, looking at other things that you've done. We don't limit ourselves to only dealing with problems. Last Friday, for example, I know Danny Bobian was showing off some of the really impressive logging features and web pages that he's built for various applications that he's using. So it's a great place to come and show something just cool that you're either working on or that you want some opinions on. One of the great things about the give and take and the conversation that happens, and and frankly, a lot of times even just watching how other people set up their 4D environment and even just on their desktop. I think almost every single time at happy hour, I come away having picked up something new. And I know a number of other people have mentioned that too. So that's one of the benefits of just seeing other people, getting a chance to interact with other developers and get a feel for what's going on. So the website down there is, really it is a really hokey little website, but it does have the link for the Zoom call. So if you don't remember how to get there, just click onto that and it'll connect you right up. So once more, hope to see everybody there, and thanks again, Brent.
Yeah, thank you, Kirk. I mean, I really enjoy highlighting that the happy hour in these meetings, because it's such a great resource, like you said, for just jumping in and having all of the some very active developers in the community all look at something that you are working on line by line, and sort of give their own opinions on how they do it in their world, or maybe to have a potential solution to something you're working on. But yeah, it's a great and friendly crowd, great resource for all of us, and thanks for making that happen.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. And now over to Jim Sobchak to just talk a little bit about some of the great news coming from the world of 4D.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. Hi, everyone. Brent, thanks for inviting Ad and myself to participate in this meeting. We always enjoy doing this. We're really looking forward to your presentation on 4D drag and drop. I'm sure it'll be interesting, as all your presentations are, and looking forward to seeing some of the city application again. We haven't seen that in quite a while, so some examples from that will be cool. Here at 4D, let's see. So business-wise, we're wrapping up a really solid 2022. We're seeing revenue growth from all of our subsidiaries, including the US, and it looks like 2022 will be even better than last year, which itself was one of the best years we ever had. We feel very fortunate during the pandemic that our business is doing really well. I know everyone is not as fortunate, but we continue to do well. This is going to be a great year for us. So thank you all the developers, business owners, for continuing to put your trust and confidence in 4D products and services. We really appreciate your business. The sales team will be super busy through the end of the year. November and December is when we renew all our partnerships for 2023. So you'll be getting notices about that. And thanks for being a member of the 4D Partner Program. And we will be doing, once again this year, our annual holiday Amazon gift promo. If you've participated in that in the past, you know what it is. If you haven't, basically it's when you purchase V19 with yearly maintenance, you're entitled to Amazon gift codes, depending on the size of the purchase. So it goes all the way up to $600 in Amazon gift code. It's a great way to start your Christmas shopping early. We'll announce the promo next week, and it will run through the end of the year, through December 31st. We have a lot of customers who just kind of hold off some of their larger purchases till the end of the year to take advantage of it. So yeah, so that's going to be happening again this year. As far as marketing events, as you know, last week we had the V19 R6 webinar. Ad and Will presented that. I know that some of you who are in this meeting now were there. We got good feedback on that webinar. Decent participation from the 4D community. We always like to see more people in that, because we think that the features we're showing in the feature releases, the R releases, are super important to the future of our products. So we'd like to see more people in that, of course. But if you did attend, or if you've attended ones in the past, and you have any ideas about how we can improve these webinars or get more people to attend, that would be great. We have our own ideas that we'll be implementing soon. So I hope you enjoyed the one last week. You know, Will and Ad put a fair amount of work into those, so it's worth attending. The training, Brent has a slide he will mention this. JPR is doing the final sessions of the year in November. This is his advanced training that he did 4 sessions in October, and then we'll do 4 more in November. That'll start next week on the 8th. So there's still time to sign up, just a few spots left. We have to limit this because there's a lively Q&A at the end, and we want to make sure everyone gets their questions in. So we do limit these training sessions. JPR is in fine form. I know in October, the very first session, he was recovering from COVID, but he found his strength after that, and I think he ended up very strong on those training sessions. For those of you who attended the October training, you should have received the session material, including the videos, the training material, etc., either late last week or early this week. There's also a form in there among the email forms that you got, in which we ask you to provide your feedback for the training. So thank you for doing that. And I think that's all for me, Brent. Since this is the last meeting before Thanksgiving, hope you all have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll be talking soon.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Definitely heard some good feedback about the training with JPR, and glad that he was able to do that with COVID. I know it's been we've all been dodging COVID bullets for long enough now. That sad to hear that he got it recently, but I'm looking forward to joining the training myself in November, so I can have more to share about it from my own reflections. But it's a really we all really enjoy seeing JPR do these trainings, so it's nice that he's been able to do another round this year. So then on to some blog articles that I'd like to highlight. It's always a torrent of material coming out on there, largely focused on the new R releases. Most of these references are from v19 R7 releases. Again, in R6, we got the HTTP client class, HTTP class. And then they finished off a whole bunch of extra functionality in R7, including compressed responses and chunked responses and redirections, along with seeing how that works with with the new HTTP client logging, so that you can actually enable logging before you make a call, and then so you're not getting a whole bunch of other lines in your log, and you can focus directly on what's going on simply with that HTTP client call. So really cool. I think we'll all be migrating to using that class really soon in our code, if we haven't already. Nice article on 4D for mobile. Get mobile users cookies, so you can manage cookies on mobile users or using their apps more effectively, and it makes it a lot easier to develop for iOS and Android if you have flexibility with cookies. Also for 4D for mobile, displaying web pages in your mobile apps. So if you have something very custom that you'd like to show in your app, you don't have to completely build it within 4D for mobile. You can build it in a web page and fully customize it to your heart's content. Or if you need to integrate with other already built services, it allows you to do that more seamlessly. And a feature that some of us, I know Tim has been excited about, say hello to rounded corners in your 4D application. So sorry to call you out, Tim. It's just fun. No, it's a nice way to modernize your look in your 4D application to better stay in step with the OS changes, OS styles, to be able to set the rounded corner radius in your buttons and your text and other input fields on your in your interfaces.
Does the current Windows UI do the rounded corners, or is that just a Mac OS thing?
You know, I'm not sure. I know that it happens in Mac OS.
Just wondering, anybody know if that's
yeah,
something on the Windows side too?
any Windows aficionados have that in front of them right now? No, but it doesn't mean that they won't. So, you know, on Windows, you could make it look like a Mac app right now, or when eventually, if they do have the rounded corners, it's available for all of us to redesign our interfaces accordingly. And then a couple more articles. One huge one that I really appreciate, a new feature in R7 for list boxes. Say goodbye to the Alt key. I'll mention this a little bit more in the demo later on. But if you do drag and drop using list boxes, it was always a little bit, you had to get a little bit creative with how you would select multiple lines and then drag, well, you know, creative or use the Alt key. But you know, users often have a hard time remembering such complications as modifier keys. So there were workarounds, but now in R7 at least, the workarounds aren't entirely necessary. You still have to do all the drag and drop code on your own, but you don't have to be too creative with the multi-line drag and drop, which is just great. And then another really appreciated feature and sought after feature in R7 is for the file and folders classes. They have something called handles, but for all of us longer time 4D developers, the handles are effectively more, gives us more of the possibility of, you know, that we're used to having with files, where you can append a line at the end of the file without having to rewrite the entire file, or you know, deeper control over the break mode, and the you know, if you're opening it in read only or in write mode. So it just sort of rounds out the feature set that we have for working and writing to and reading from files, which is really nice, and makes it a lot more familiar and easier for all of us to migrate our older code to the new classes. Anyways, again, so much more in the 4D blog. I really shamefully don't say enough about the 4D view and you know, word features in the blog, and I think we need to have a whole meeting based on those plugins themselves one of these days, but we'll get there. Just too much to talk about. Anyways, check it out at the blog.4d.com, and also another great resource for learning about 4D programming is the knowledge base. And I'm going to just hand over the mic to Ad to talk about a couple of the most recent tech notes.
Thanks, Brent. Hi, guys. So as a reminder, the knowledge base, particularly tech notes, the latest tech notes is always available only for partners over so many years now. I think we're trying to make sure that everyone is aware of their own partners' benefits. So check them out. We are trying to make sure that the content is produced in the same context, kind of go along with the new versions that we have, trying to push you guys to learn new technologies, as well as different ways to program in 4D and utilize some of the features, especially some of the new ones that we coming out with our releases. So for this time, I'm going to highlight two tech notes from October. The first tech note is titled Associative Arrays. So this tech note was written by Olivier's Deschanel's team. Hafid is one of his guy that helped producing this tech note. So over the years, I'm not sure if you guys have worked with Olivier. He has done so many professional services, especially advocating how to optimize your application, how to write your application in the way that it can push productivity and it can go faster. So one of the things that he produced, they produced for this particular tech note deals with something that many of us have done in the past. You know, you create some sort of name and values arrays. You know, many of us try to cache some of those information at the startup and be able to go back and try to get the value at later time. So the tech note describe a special technique that utilizing objects in the way that you can reference and get data info. Sorry, my dog is running behind me. Get the information back very quickly and be able to have a clear and more organized structure. So have a look at it. There's a lot of good stuff in this tech note. He always, Olivier and his team always come up with some unique and optimized technique in many ways of their own projects. So this is one of the things that they're sharing with us. The second tech note deals with 4D View Pro tables. Now, if you have never used tables in 4D View Pro, there's so many things that you could do. So Ty is one of our senior tech support engineer, put together a very nice tech note on how to create, manipulate, as well as offer some of the unique way to use tables within 4D View Pro. He also covers how to deal with pivot tables procedurally and programmatically. So this is, again, a larger tech notes because of there's so many contents that you can talk about when dealing with 4D View Pro. And even though we just cover only the tables aspect of it, there's a lot of things that was, maybe something you never discover while using the product or the plugins. So have a look at it. There's so many things will come out later in terms of 4D View Pro, including 4D Write Pro as well. We're trying to make sure that we offer different use case for the plugins, not just one aspect of how you use the plugin itself. So hopefully you'll get some good use out of this particular tech note. Okay. All right, that's it for me. Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, I really dug the associative arrays one. I've used that technique a lot in applications. It's the fastest way to access data if you're storing it, if you're retrieving it and then storing it, sort of caching it locally. And it's really, I've done a couple of short videos about using arrays and find and sorted array and that kind of thing, but this is truly the best optimization that we have at hand currently. So it's nice to see that written up in a way that makes it easier for everyone to digest. So anyways, thanks as usual for all the great articles that your team puts out and all the great tech tips too. One of these days we should do a laundry list of tech tips a little bit in the meeting, just to shout out about them as well. Anyways, all right, so hate to steal the spotlight for the demo today, but it's been a while since I've done one of these, so I figured why let everyone else have all the fun. I consider the title of the demo being having to do with drag and drop to be what a drag, but that was a bit confusing and didn't want anyone to get the wrong idea. which brings me to 4D and drag and drop. Also a bit risky because I didn't want to lead anyone to think the folks at 4D would be getting into costume for the event, but that's what I went with anyways. In all seriousness, I thought the topic of drag and drop would make an interesting topic for a presentation. Normally, when we do these demos, I'll start with introducing whomever is speaking, but this time it being me. I think most of you are pretty familiar with who I am, but I figured I'd give a couple of short notes anyways. I've been developing with 4D since 1999, not as long as some of you out there, but still pretty long. I've been working with 4D has taken me to some interesting places, starting in Munich, Germany, and Bern, Switzerland, exotic Virginia Beach in the US, Washington, DC, Tampa, Florida, and now Chicago, Illinois, where I've been for the last 15 years. Those were just captive programmer locations, as they say, but other project work has taken me all across the globe. And upon starting at the Art Institute of Chicago Museum, where I am now, I hadn't seen drag and drop used very heavily in applications I'd worked with before. And oftentimes I think it was somewhat overlooked in a lot of applications for what you can do with it and how it can be used. The 4D application that the museum uses to manage its collection, plan exhibitions, transactions with other museums and individuals, shipments of fine art and catalog related photography and documents is called City. That's what Edgar and I developed. And in the past also, Stefan, who's in the meeting with us, who if I might be able to con into turning on his video once we talk a little bit more specifically about City. But yeah, City relies on drag and drop very heavily for a lot of its core functionality. If you can use City without using drag and drop, but you're missing a lot of the ease that drag and drop presents, and we'll take a look at that later. So I've become quite familiar with it over the years, and I'll share a few ways that we use drag and drop in City later in the demo. But for now, just going to highlight a couple things about drag and drop. It can make your apps absolutely fabulous. There's just lots of interesting functionality that is relatively easy to implement, even if you're just using out of the box capabilities. There's 4D offers a lot of nice automatic functionalities that if you're not taking advantage of, they're just a checkbox away. And we'll take a look at those as well. Drag and drop caveat is not for everyone. It's most useful in desktop apps. If you're just serving web pages and web apps or mobile apps or that kind of thing, or APIs and so on, you may find limited use for it anyways, unless you have some desktop admin functionality or interface. So standalone or client, and everything that I show today is up on GitHub on the 4DMethod GitHub page. So the address is there, 4DMethod/4D and drag, for anybody that wants to look at it on their own. I used vanilla for 4DV19. Not saying that couldn't be opened in one of the R versions, but just in case people didn't have access to the R versions, that's what I used for it. Okay, so let's first just do a quick review of the old way of doing things. Historically, I mean, 4D drag and drop's been available in 4D for years, you know, since, I don't know, maybe not the beginning, but since many a version ago. Originally, there's a command called drag and drop properties, also known as the obsolete flagged drag and drop properties, which you may still see in your older databases. Syntax being when you call that on a drop event, you get a pointer to the source object, source element. If you know you are dragging from a list box or some kind of a let's see, a hierarchical list, I believe, and what process the drag originated in. Which is all great, but it's been effectively deprecated since V11. So if you haven't replaced it in your application yet, you're gonna need to now. Basically, it's I think all bets are off on it being working in V20 and so on. So yeah, so let's. I'm gonna try and do what's always so easy in these presentations, which is bounce between the slides and the demo database. So here we have the I'll just get rid of some of this and this guy. So apologies, the demo is not anything that looks fabulous, but all of the code is in there for exploring the functionality. You'll see some of these blue blocks on the you guys can all see this. Anybody?
What are you showing?
Oh, okay.
There's a kid standing on the looking up. There's a kid standing on the ground looking up into like.
Okay. Yep. Sorry. Thank you. That's why we ask. I need to flip over to the share. Thank you for, you know, eating my own dog food here. It's all right. Now can you see it?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Well, that's important. So, again, everyone, please, you know, feel free to turn your mics on and ask questions if I'm not being clear, or if you have any questions in general, if you want me to take a moment to look a little bit deeper at all of this. And yeah, so it's and Edgar will be having a look at the chat too, in case I miss anything there. But anyways, back to the demo. So the old way, the deprecated way, this is just a variable with it's just a text variable and dragging to a destination, which is an input area. What happens on drop is yeah, you come in and you get the drag and drop properties, and you see up here in the source, that's the variable that was dragged. It's the current process number in this case, but if you're dragging it to another window or another process, you would see the original process number. And if you were dragging it from a list box per se, you would have the element that was actually dragged. So then in this case, since it's in this process, you could use the pointer directly, dereference it, and do something like do an alert. But if not, you'd have to do something like use get process variable to retrieve the value and then use it in that regard. I did notice, you know, it's very tempting to not assign variables anymore in recent databases, just to use the form dynamically assigned form variables. If you're doing it the old way, you still have to have those actual variables to work with, or else the pointer comes up null, and then you've got problems. So if you haven't replaced that code, then don't get rid of your form variables. Anyways, so do something with old style. That's the value of the text variable that was dragged over. Right, so I'm just going to switch back over here. And I think if I move it here, oh, okay, we can just look at the slides. I think that would be easier. One moment, and I will just pull that up. There we go. Just so I don't have to manage Keynote at the same time as all this. Right, so that's the old drag and drop. So what about the new way that things are done? Easy drag, yes, that's a thing. Can't entirely see it as well in this screeny there, but there's click check boxes for automatic drag. You might see that in previous versions, and more recent versions you have automatic or custom drag options. I'll show you that in the interface. Automatic drags works with text and pictures. In 4D, you can drag from object to object or into other apps. Like you can drag directly to the to your desktop. So, you know, if you'd like, it's quite easy for having every text variable in your app to be able to be, you know, drag the content around to other applications or elsewhere. If you don't enable that, it won't happen. So if there's any lengthy text that people, you know, don't want to be troubled to actually copy paste, or they can't be editing, that's a way to enable it very easily. And then there's also options for using control and option keys for copying. So let's take a quick look at how that works. Each one of these slides has its own dedicated tab here. Right, so you have some text, and it's enabled for drag and drop. If you hit the option key, it will drag it directly. If you don't, let's see, it just moves it. So that's how that works. You can't drag it to picture variables, clearly, but if you had a picture in there, I'm dragging a picture in, so it's droppable, automatically droppable from the from your desktop, and then you can also drag it directly onto another object from object to object, and but you cannot drag automatically a picture to your desktop. This kind of stuff, you know, if you have a text editor or something like that, you can, it's you know, if people are working with a Word document or something, or an email, if you're dragging to an email application, you can automatically drag text very easily. Now this is I'm going to show you the interface. Let's just get that open. So you can see in this first one, there is no code on the item that was dragged. The code was only in the destination. So on drop, you're doing everything. On this next page, nothing has any code associated with it whatsoever. It's all just these. Let's see if it can jump out at me. Right, so you see there's different options: no drag, automatic drag, or custom drag, and we'll get to the custom drag later. But if you want to enable this kind of, you know, dragging around your interface or dragging from text boxes to other parts of your OS, it's that easy. You just flip it on automatic. I believe that that's the default as well for creating new text boxes. But if you're upgrading an older application, that's by no means the default, and you'll want to check these kind of things if that's the behavior that you want to enable. Okay, right, so then let's see, back to oh, where was I? Yeah, so that's the automatic drag. And back to the slides. Yeah, so it's that easy. It really is. And And there's a there's a great documentation out there for these features as well at this link that I have on the slide.
Brent, there's a request to make the PDF larger if you can.
Okay. Let's see, does that help at all? That's the whole screen. Anyways, so right then, that's out of the box, and that's, you know, it's kind of, if you're looking for drag functionality, that's the easiest thing you could possibly do. It's literally just check boxes or selection to say automatic. Right. So, but there's a lot of more functionality that you can do. In 4D, there's a special database method called onDrop, where for any time that you're dragging files onto 4D or into the 4D, what do you call it, the SDI or the MDI, there we go, it's on the slide, or into the 4D dock icon or the desktop icon, like the shortcut on your desktop, works the same way, that you can do whatever needs to be done with those files. So if it's a Word document or a picture, doesn't matter, that database method runs, and then you can then get the file from the pasteboard. Now what that does is it doesn't get you the actual content of the file, it gets you the path of the file that was dragged. So we can go ahead and take a look at how that works. So I'll just drag this this logo onto 4D. Now, since I'm on Mac, I've got to hold down the modifier keys, and that's Option and Command, and then it kicks into an onDrop. Now, you know, you can do whatever that makes sense for your own application. For dragging into an app, we'll take a look at how we use that in our city application later. But in this case, it's you know, you get the indexed file. If you drag more than one files, you can click through, you can get each one of the files depending on how many that there are. And in this case, it was just one file. It gets the path. You can see in the debug window here, it's just on the desktop. In this case, I'm just going to put it in storage. So there's just a new shared object with an attribute that's a picture in storage. So now I have that there. And the picture is now set in storage if we choose to use that somewhere later on in the demo. Yeah, so that's the onDrop on the database method, onDrop method in the database. And you can find that method and all the other database methods under methods and database methods here. So you can see the onDrop event. So it's the same kind of thing as, you know, on startup and other events that you have to track. It's just at the database level. Right. So that's dragging into your application one way or another. You can just drop it right on your, if you have a merged application where you've sort of branded your application, which I think is always a nice thing to do, so that you have some identity of all of your hard work. It works the same way. Just drag it right on top of the application or the shortcut or into the MDI window, and then boom, you're interacting with files one way or another. It could even be files that you created in your application, dragging back into your application. So right, let's go to the next slide here. Okay. Yep. So but getting into the more custom behaviors, you can set it to be on draggable or something to be draggable, and use the on begin drag over. this is the on begin drag over is called within the context of the source object. So that always confused me when I first looked at it. I'm like, well, shouldn't that be running when I'm beginning to drag over something else? Well, no, it's when you begin to, when the drag action begins. So you enable the draggable, custom draggable, or any draggable property in that case. Actually, I think custom actually has to be enabled, turned on, and the on begin drag over event, and then you can jump in and actually do something more complicated with the drag. So instead of just using automatic drag, you can actually run your own code. Now, in order to do this kind of stuff, you have to be familiar with what 4D calls the pasteboard. The pasteboard is kind of like treated as a clipboard, but during a drag operation, there's a parallel clipboard or pasteboard that's not really what you've normally copied using hotkeys or whatever. It's a dedicated pasteboard for all of your dragging and dropping, and this is where you can get creative and do whatever you'd like to do with the drag content, or not even the content itself doesn't have to have anything to do with the drag action itself. So we'll look at that a little bit closer as we jump into the drag icon page here. And one of the things that you can do with the during the on begin drag over event for the source object is to customize the drag appearance of whatever of the mouse, depending on what's being dragged. Now there's two or more different things you can do, but in general, an easy thing to do is to read a picture file and to assign that to the drag icon. But something that's really neat to do that I find more informative is to actually generate an SVG picture depending on the qualities of what's being dragged. So you can see on this screen here, you have a text that says, I'm dragging 23 student records, or 23 products or widgets, or more descriptive text about what's being dragged. So if you come back over here, this is what it looks like when you're dragging a picture, and this is what it looks like when you're dragging a automatically generated SVG. Now that's one thing to say, okay, that's possible, but once you have the icon, it doesn't mean that it's actually a file on the pasteboard quite yet. That's just customizing the look of the mouse and what's being dragged. So in the code, it's quite easy. All you're doing is on the picture drag, you are reading it, in this case, from the resources folder. I don't know if any of you have embraced the new way of working with standard paths in 4D, where you have this all caps resources and all caps projects and project and that kind of thing. It's a really jazzy way of not having to build a folder path to your files, and it makes these sort of pathings a lot easier on the eyes. But I'm converted to using it that way. It's so much easier. But anyways, I think that's a link to describing how you can be doing that now. But yeah, so you read the picture file into a variable, and then you set the drag icon. That's the easiest way of being able to set the drag icon. And likewise, a little bit more code, but on the SVG side of things, again, you're just catching the event for form event code is on begin drag over. That's on the thing that's being dragged. And you're generating an SVG on the fly of some kind of informative text about what's being dragged. And you can get really creative. You can have it be whatever color that you want. In this case, it was deep pink, and it can have an opacity, so it can be semi-transparent or not. It takes a little bit of math. A lot of us have routines already for calculating like the width of the text and creating an SVG for it. But once you get the hang of that, it's quite easy. You can have whatever font that you want, and boom, there you got it. So then you create your own pick on the fly. And if you noticed, the first one, the mouse is right in the middle of the picture. That's the default behavior, but you can have an offset. This is sort of an X and Y offset from where the mouse is, so that you can make it look more like you're dragging it right where the D starts in dragging 9 objects, which is a nice effect to have for this kind of thing. Yeah, so this alone is something that I've really enjoyed deploying in our city application, because we have different entities that you're dragging, whether it's objects or assets. Assets are like pictures and documents and that kind of thing, or fields. Depending on what you drag, it has a different color and it has a descriptive text of what you're dragging. If I had a nice wish, since we have 4D here, it would be really cool to also update it depending on whatever you're dragging over. But until further notice, once you have set the icon, that's what the icon is. Right, so back over to our slide here.
Quick question, Brent.
Sure.
Is there any differences in functionality between Mac and Windows? Does it all work the same cross-platform?
It's all the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the same. Yeah, till further notice anyways. There's no the SVG is a standard, right, for making pictures, and the drag icon, it works exactly the same between OSs. So thanks for the question. Again, if anybody has a question, feel free to jump in there, that's and blurt it out or comment or something, and if you are using originally I was hoping to make this sort of a panel presentation, but if you're using some of these features in different ways, just shout it out and say, yeah, I use that for something cool in my app too. So but yeah, so on to the next slide here. Right, so you can set a picture to the pasteboard. Okay, so that it's getting a little bit more interesting. There's 4D commands for when you begin your drag to set the picture to the pasteboard. You can also on the destination, you can get the picture from the pasteboard. And you can also do it a bit fancier. You can say you can have a specific what are these called? Specific type, anyways, of picture that you're pulling from the pasteboard. So you can actually put several different types. You can put a JPEG, a GIF, or a GIF, depending on your choice there. But yeah, so you can do that. You can actively set the picture, which is, I think, what we saw down here. Now that was setting the drag icon, sorry. But on this one, you're dragging picture data. So you're also, I left the descriptive text on there that you can drag a picture without having a custom icon. And you can drop it into automatic drop, again, no code needed for that. You can see there's no badge for the automatic drop. But if you wanted to have a little bit more control, you can have it on the custom drop code. So in this case, we're just kicking out on the on drop event there. In fact, in the on drag over event, which we haven't talked about quite yet, but this is a great time to talk about it. If you see in the interface, let's see if I can get this down a little bit. If you see in the interface how the little plus comes up, well, you have control over what destinations can take what drags. And that's what, at least on Mac, this little plus sign indicates. In this case, we're monitoring, we're checking what's in the pasteboard by saying pasteboard data size for, in this case, just a 4D picture, which since it's in a variable, that's how it's treated. Which is, this looks a little bit scary, but I'll show you in a second how you can test what's actually in the pasteboard. Or you can check and see if it's actually text being dragged, in which case you don't want text in a picture variable, or at least you're not choosing to react to that. You don't have to do anything with you don't have to do anything picture-y with text when you're dragging it, but you could have other actions when dragging text into a picture variable. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. This is a handy handy command here for determining what is actually being dragged. So you can see everything that's in the pasteboard. So like we saw up above there on the on drag over, where you're controlling whether or not that destination object should accept it, should run its on drop code. And if it's going to accept it, it sets $0 to 0. And if not, it sets it to something else, the reject value of -1. So if you've detected, say, a picture in the pasteboard data, you can, and if you're wondering what's in the pasteboard, so you know what needs to be detected to accept the drag, you use the get pasteboard data type to show a list of what's in there. And then since we said we know that in this case we're accepting 4D pictures, then we use the get picture from pasteboard to get it into a variable, and then we set that picture actively to the custom drop area. That's this guy. So we're doing the, what seems like close to the automatic drag, but we're doing it in a custom way. Now, remember, we weren't dragging a picture. That drag picture was actually set in the on begin drag over event, and it's just coming from a file. So, in this case, we're dragging a text variable, but setting picture content and monitoring the content on the drop and being able to react just to accept only specific dragged data. Now, like I said, you can put text in here and drag it. I have a beep in there. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's not accepting the drag there. You're not getting the little plus sign when you drag the text. In that case, the beep is actually coming from when it detects the UTF text in the drag. So we're saying text, no way, not here. Okay, so anyways, I've been going for a while. Any comments or questions? No. Fine then.
There was a couple of chat questions, specifically, and there's a comment from Gerald about if you have a if you have if you got a scanning application, and you can say, set the application to open. Once the scanned documents finish being scanned, you set that to 4D. It's going to trigger the on drop in 4D.
Well,
I'm asking that. I don't know if that's true. Oh, yes, he did report. Yes, that's it. Okay.
okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a, if you've scanned a bunch of files to a folder, and then you grab those files and you drag them onto 4D or into an interface element like this,
But
then
what he's saying is that you don't have to even drag it. You just scan it. The scanner app scans the whatever, and then it immediately sends an on drop event to 4D with the path of the file. And then you can immediately do whatever you want in 4D with it. I didn't know that was possible. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I guess that's basically what happens when you're saying open this file with your application. Yeah.
Now it makes sense, but I didn't know that was possible. Thanks, Jared, for that.
Yeah, no, that's a nice tip. Great tip. Just saying, if you say open this file, open any particular file with your application merged or otherwise, 4D directly or otherwise, you'll get these on drop events. Right. So that's we took a look at setting the picture to the pasteboard, getting the picture from the pasteboard, and being more specific about it, saying, well, I only want this type of picture from the pasteboard. Right. So then let's take a look at what else can be done. Dragging custom text, which is again very jazzy to be able to do from your application. Say dragging tab delimited text to a spreadsheet, dragging JSON content out of your application to a VS Code or a text editor. All of that. The simplest way to do it is using set text to pasteboard. But you can also, what I like to do also is generating to drag a file directly out of your application. So you just on the begin drag over, you generate a file in a temporary directory, and you can set that file to the pasteboard just like the file came out of wherever you're dragging from. So right, you can well, let's just take a look at it. On this next tab here, you can drag JSON data. You can drag JSON data and set a picture to the drag icon, and you can drag it, say in this case, directly to BB Edit, and this is just JSON data that was generated on the fly. Saying Happy Halloween, and I'll show you the how that's done. But it's this easy. You're just creating an object, you're stringifying that object, and setting the text to the pasteboard. And we're accessing the picture that was in storage for the icon. Obviously, you don't have to do that, but it just is, you can get as creative as makes sense for your own application and for your own users. But yeah, so it's imagine you had some JSON content, or you wanted to turn an entity or an entity selection into JSON and drag that directly out of your app to a text file somewhere to sort of snoop it or otherwise. It's that easy. You just create the JSON on the fly, and then it's all good. So, but what's even better, instead of saying, well, I have to drag it here to use it, to actually see it, or at least on the Mac OS, you can drag it, I believe, to your desktop, which comes up with a text clipping, but it's not really a text file per se. A nicer thing to do is to drag it and have it generate a JSON file on the fly that you can open up, or say, instead of dragging it to your desktop. You can drag it right to your mail application, and send it. So it's just no different than any other old JSON file, which is and again, like that, I find that all of a sudden becomes really useful in the applications. It's been a nice trick to deploy. But yeah, so you have the temporary folder location, you've got your object data, whatever it may be, an entity that's been stringified or whatever, and you create it in the temporary folder. And yeah, you set text to it using the new file class commands, and then you use the set file to pasteboard command. And again, you can either have an icon for your drag or not. You could have a little file icon, or you could have your own application's logo as you're dragging it, whatever. Just trying to sort of monkey around and show you what's possible. But yeah, so that's dragging directly out of files directly out of the interface, boom, and then you have a JSON file or any file if you want to create your own file type, which again, wink wink, we'll take a look at with City later on in the demo. Okay, and then the other one here is just dragging tab delimited data, right? I don't have a drag icon. That's what you see, the naked drag. But it's this is just tab delimited data that's being dragged, and then you can say open up a spreadsheet like Excel and drag directly into your spreadsheet, which again is just like stupid easy, and just a really nice way to make it so that your data in your application, your say entity selection list box, that you can drag data directly out of that. You could even generate an Excel file from that data doing this on the fly and drag an Excel file directly to your desktop, or you can drag the data itself right into a spreadsheet or any other application. I mean, in this case, it's just text. And we'll take a quick look at what's going on with that. Yeah, it's literally this easy. I'm just creating a tab delimited data, 100 lines of it, setting the text to the pasteboard, and boom, you're playing nice with other applications, and your users can say, finally, it's so easy to get my data out of my 4D application, and this is awesome. So yeah, it's just nice little approaches to deploy in your application to just make it really up the usability of your app. Right, so we covered dragging custom text. Again, we're not just doing automatic drag now, we're generating content on begin drag. So you can create spreadsheets or spreadsheet content or JSON content, or dragging files on the fly, using set file to pasteboard. Links to each of those documentations down there at the bottom of the slide. Right, so what about dragging multiple types all at once? That's totally possible using append data to pasteboard. Previously, we were, the set text and set file and set picture to pasteboard. Those are just kind of helper commands to make it really easy to put text and whatnot, pictures and whatnot on the pasteboard. But at some level, it gets down to appending data to the pasteboard, which if you want to combine data types on the pasteboard, which you can, you start using append data to the pasteboard. You can have multiple types at once. You can set a picture and a text and a file all at once. The result will depend on whatever the destination accepts. It can have a preference to say, well, if there's a file, I'll take the file, or heck, I'll just take raw text, but in those cases, you can have different cases. Well, cases. Those cases, there's cases for determining what to do with the dragged content. And what is also just really takes off the handcuffs of these drag operations is you can create your own data type. So when you're appending data to the pasteboard, you don't have to say it's UTF-16 data or picture, 4D picture data. You can say it's my company and a certain type of data. You can say 4DMethod user group data. So you pack it all up with your custom data type. And for instance, you could have a custom data type with your own object or collection information for dragging just straight records out of your application or around in your application, not in this case, less so to other applications because they're not going to know about your custom data type. But within your application, it can be a real interesting way to say, all right, well, when I'm dragging from here, I'm dragging a JSON. If I'm landing to a text area, if I'm dragging here, I'm pulling the picture. I think in both of those, there's no code being run. So that's just the automatic drag, taking whatever it sees as applicable to these input areas, being text and picture. But that drag doesn't work down here in a list box, but it does up here, you can see. And in this case, the desktop appears to take the picture itself, but these custom drag types are a lot handier within your own application. Now say, well, let's take a look at what was going on there before we go to the next little functionality. Right, so we're setting the text to the pasteboard, and then we're also taking the logo PNG and appending that as a picture document to the pasteboard. So you're combining, you're building a pasteboard full of different types that you can do whatever you want to depending on where you're dragging it to. Again, sometimes it's like, wow, why would I do that? What's useful about that? But the more you think about it, the more you look at your application, sometimes the more you come up with, well, actually, this would be kind of handy to be able to drag different content depending on what you're dragging. Or you can say drag the entity object. In this case, the entity itself is also text, but we are also detecting a specific pasteboard data type. In this case, it's 4DMethod record. And we're catching that and we're saying, all right, if I've got a 4DMethod record in there, you get that data as a blob. And then we do blob to variable, and boom, you've got an entity. At least a entity would be more a record. In this case, it's an object masquerading as an entity, but nonetheless, you can push it onto the collection and see it show up there. Now, in that case, I was just dragging it onto the bottom here of the list box. You can also do the same thing with a collection and push that onto the list box using the combine code there. So that just says, all right, I'm going to combine the current content with the new content, and there you go. You've got your stuff that you've dragged from one area to another area. But sometimes it's also cool to say, instead of just dragging right into, to just throw it at the bottom of the list box, you can also drag it to a certain line in the list box. Like I want to make that one drop at the first row. So when you're dragging and this form event, which I don't know how many of you guys use that religiously now, but it's just it's the best way to get information about the drag. So in this case, I dragged it to row number 1. If I didn't drop it on the row, it wouldn't even mention the row. You don't always see row there unless you're in a drag event where you're dropping onto a row. But yeah, you see the object name and description and even the column name and the column number, and just a lot of information about where the drag event is happening. And you can react to that. So in this case, we see that it's being dropped on a row. Therefore, we're going to use the what is it called? The member function insert to insert the past entity or the past object into a certain row location on the in the list box. So in that case, it's the first one. You can drag it anywhere you want and it'll pop up in there. I can take the stop out so that it's a little easier on the eyes, and boom, you got it wherever you need it. And you can also do the same thing with collections. You can drop in a collection onto any part of the row, any row where it makes sense. Right, so that's being able to, again, generate this data. Normally you'd be pulling this from record information, setting the stringified data to the pasteboard, and then making a blob out of it, and you're appending your own data type which you can react to. So it doesn't have to be a record. It could be a widget or a field type, or some depends on the functionality, and that identifies the content that you're dragging. So that can have a universal identifier that's local to your own application, which is, you can do some very interesting functionality with it. And same thing on this side. Right, I just made 5 quasi records because this database has no data. Setting it to the collection to the pasteboard, and appending the 4DMethod selection type to the pasteboard. All right, been going a little ways here. Any comments or questions out there? Nope. Okay. Well, let's kick over to the next slide for a little bit more fun. Is anybody using is any of you using Signal? I imagine a few of us have started using Coliform because that's really incredible useful. I love Signal these days. That's sort of my jam with between processes and that kind of thing. Signal is really neat. It's effectively a way to have a shared object that you're passing, depending on what you're doing with it, but you can hand off a shared object, Signal object, to a worker, and locally you can tell it to wait. It doesn't have to be a worker, but you stop the code, the running code in the origin by doing the .wait function. And if you, I haven't looked at my processors to prove it, but if according to the 4D documentation, it waits without any processing costs. It's not like you're sitting around saying, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Are you done? It's doing that kind of a functionality in a more sophisticated way, where it's signaling, signaling, and then in the wherever you are using the signal, you can pack up whatever information you want into that shared object. The signal is just a shared object, and then you can trigger whatever it is that's waiting for that signal. Again, signals are terrifically useful. I just did it in a way to make multi-threading processing of data, where you're doing more advanced statistics on a bunch of JSON information records and whatnot, and so you can farm out the selections using signals to a bunch of preemptive worker processes, build up the results in the signals, and then hand the signals back to your calling process, and then do something with it. So in this case, though, I'm imagining that we're dragging large amounts of data. Now, you've seen the way that you are previously assigning the data actively on the begin drag operation. Now, if you've got a lot of data, or you have to do a lot of processing to drag whatever is being dragged, you're going to see a little lag when you start dragging, and it might just be a whole lot of work that the user didn't even really intend. And so sometimes it's better just to say, like, all right, I only want to really get that data when I've accepted the drop. And in this case, that's how we're going to do it. We're going to, well, let's take a look at it. So on the really fancy tab, I'm just going to, just to show it can be done, open up another process. That's just launching another process that's going to receive the drag. And before I do it, let's just take a quick look at the code. So on the begin drag over, in the origin, on the source, we're going to make an object that says what the window reference is, the current form window, so that we can use call form, hint, hint. The object name, it's really, I don't think anything, you can use it if you need to or not. And then the method that you're going to want to run to gather the data that is associated with this drag. Right, so then you there's this really zero processing, so it's instantaneous for the drag source, and then you're packing up that variable into the blob, and we're assigning our own type of a 4DMethod signal as the data type for the blob. And then in the receiving end of things, you can see it's filtering out everything except for signals. So if it gets a signal object in the pasteboard, right, so you're going to actually create the signal in the destination, and then you're going to call the form using the gather method sort of callback, as they say, and then you're going to wait for the callback to finish what it's doing. Now this is just so that if something has gone sideways, it doesn't wait forever. You can assign it whatever is a reasonable amount of time. And then once the signal is done waiting, it will continue on from here. And if it shows that it's been signaled, which is just part of how signals work, then we're going to combine the data that's being shown in this list box with what's been generated by the signal. The callback itself, let's go back to here where we're the callback that, in this case, I'm just generating 1 million records. Normally you would be pulling those records or selection information, selection data from your database or from external data sources, whatever. But you just don't want to do such heavy lifting right when the drag starts. And then you are using the signal. Again, it works just like a shared object. So you use to assign the data to the signal, and you're copying the data that was generated up here in this collection C data. You're copying it into the signal using copy and the shared flag, so that you can copy collections into shared collection or shared objects. And then you trigger it, which, as we saw, finally puts the data into the destination. So I'm dragging over here. Nothing, even though effectively I'll have been dropping a million records, nothing happens until you drop it. And then I'm just running a barber pole effectively for when the data itself is being pulled from whatever location that makes sense. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, so that's an example of the signal that's run out of time. So that's a good thing. I promise. Good thing to demo, anyways. So let's make the signal a little bit longer. It took more than 10 seconds, and so we got the alert. It said, "I've kicked out." And that data was too big, and I got impatient. So you can have you can handle whatever needs to be done in that case. But let's change the time that we're waiting so that hopefully the signal actually works in this time. So we're dragging it, dropping it. Hopefully it doesn't take a whole lot of time. If it does, we can reduce the million records that it's generating and kicking into the signal, and there you go. So you can adjust those wait times as necessary, but they're just there so that your application, or at least that process, doesn't go into a complete freeze until you shut down or something. But yeah, so there you go. We just dragged big data, so to say, a million records that we're displaying in this entity or this collection list box. And none of it was pulled or generated when you first start dragging. So you're optimizing the drag operation so that you're not doing too much unnecessary processing. When I just sort of like, oops, I click dragged by mistake, and I didn't want it to sit there and generate or pull all of that data. So I thought that was fun. Always looking for interesting ways to use signal in call form. And again, all this this code is available from that GitHub project there. But just a lot of interesting uses for signal out there, and that being one of them, to sort of decouple the drag operation from the pasteboard itself. Any questions on that one? Nope.
Not specific to that, but there's a question about can you drop email attachments into the 4D application?
Yeah, it's just a file. Yeah, it's the same thing as dragging if somebody emailed you a file, an Excel file or a picture or anything like that. Attachments are just files, and they're not treated any differently than a file off your desktop, because again, like the other applications, at least ought to be playing nice. If you can drag an attachment out of your email onto your desktop, you can drag it onto 4D and do something with it. You can drag it into a 4D window and do something with it. There used to be a compatibility setting. I think that it's more buried now, that you can, this accepts external drags. I think it's now a database setting or something like that.
You may
but-
have to do some experimentation to see what the data types are
exactly.
on the pasteboard and handle them appropriately in your drop code.
Exactly, yeah. So in this case, you'll be, testing for a pasteboard size of a certain type, or I think down here, where was it? Yeah, no, that's getting the pasteboard data. Somewhere we had the that command for determining what the actual dragged information was. I believe it was here. So this is a good way just to snoop the pasteboard, so to say. You can see what's all, when you drag that attachment into 4D, you can test and see, all right, well, what data type just showed up when I was dragging into my application, that attachment. Of course, it probably depends on what the attachment is, but as an answer to the question, yes, it should be possible. All right, and then for
Brent, quick comment.
Mhm.
This idea of dragging something from 4D and dropping it on Excel and having it, load up, spreadsheet, like a really fast export, like you drug data and dropped it on numbers. It put everything into all that.
Yep.
Darn it, I just tried that and it doesn't build all the cells in Excel. It just the tabs weren't respected and it didn't populate across. It made lines, but it didn't jump it across the cells. If I got an old version of Excel that doesn't support this,
I don't. I think it's done that since it's done that sort of behavior since the olden days. It's probably just in how you're generating the data. For instance, where did I do that here?
I mean, have you actually done this to where you've generated data and drop it in Excel and it populated across all the cells and all the rows?
Yeah, I mean, I can open up Excel and if I
Okay.
have to.
Maybe I'm using maybe an old version of Excel and that's why.
Oh, no, it's pretty.
All right, well, let me see you drop it in there and then I know.
Okay, yeah, I'll prove it. I'll take that challenge if Excel will let me.
Okay, I'm using the same version of Excel that you are, so great.
Yeah. So I don't know if not all of us are familiar with these sort of escaped characters, but that's a tab. You don't
Yeah,
have
right.
to say plus char tab or character blah blah blah. It's so these are just numbers with tabs in between, and then a return or that's a return character anyways.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling Tim, I know you know that, but just for those out there not familiar with that sort of nomenclature. And then if we come back here, right? No, did I miss it?
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, there we go. So we're dragging again. We're just dragging the tab delimited data in, and it does the same thing.
Okay.
Are you on Windows or?
Well, to tell you the truth, I didn't write any 4D code. I actually just went into like text edit and created some text in there and drug it. And so Excel is not handling that.
Okay. All
Not a
right.
problem. Not a problem. I saw it work.
Yeah. No,
That's wonderful. It's great.
it shouldn't be any different than going like this and then dragging that here.
And see, there you go. Doesn't work.
See, in this case, we do better than text edit.
I'm guessing the pasteboard is got a bunch of different types in it from text edit, and Excel is not interpreting that properly. Anyway, great. That answers my question.
Yeah, and exactly. Maybe it's the RTF business getting in the way. Maybe
Yeah.
if you did it here, and it's probably the fact that it's no, that works. So BB edit, any raw text editor, probably that's the key. Is it needs to be a raw text editor, not a formatted one. So
Thank you, Brent. That answers the question. It's going to work great.
Great, cool. Oh, glad. See, if you just get one little thing, sometimes that's what. Sitting through all the talk is worth it just to have one thing. but yeah, so then like I was referring to earlier, historically it's been a little problematic to at least, I didn't like having to hold down the modifier. You're right, it's just me, I think. But previously, if you hold down the Alt key, it would drag fine. But most users just want to do what the OS does, which is if you have several things selected, it would, you could just drag without having to remember to hold down anything. But if you look here, and I can turn off the code to show you its original behavior, but when you click and start a drag, I haven't quite started it, but it loses the selection, which is obviously maddening for users to say, well, I wanted to drag it and I had everything I wanted selected and now it's not working. So now I'm going to slam down my keyboard. But there was a way that I made a little video for how to make that possible using in the olden days with array-based list boxes. And it's also possible with entity selection list boxes and collection-based list boxes. And with R7, thankfully, you won't even have to do it. But so how do you do it in, sort of older applications if you're not going to be using R7 anytime soon? Sadly, there are ways to do it. It takes a little bit of work. But in this case, we're again using just collections. This is the data, this side, that's the data, and that's the destination. So these are just two collections. And then we are having a shadow selection. That's what I called it here anyways. And then a flag to say, okay, I've got a multi-line drag event happening. So as you are clicking around, changing your selection, you're just making a shadow shadow collection of the selected lines here. So you can see here, it's the selected items are multi-line selected. That's all that is. So you're copying that into another collection you're just keeping off to the side. And then when you start a drag, if you see that shadow selection is more than one line, because you don't really need to do this otherwise, you are reinstating the selection the shadow selection, and you are selecting those rows using list box commands. So you're actively setting the multi-line selected collection, and you're using this. I can't remember if that's actually necessary to do both, but it probably is. And then you're doing the drag. So then you've reinstated the what was already selected, and you are then you're using that for your drag. And in this case, if a multi-line drag is active, or like actually, okay, yeah, sorry, this is where you're selecting it. I don't know, all the code's in here. So it's effectively you're just keeping as you're changing the selection, you're keeping a shadow copy of it off to the side, reinstating it on begin drag over, at the same time as you're setting the clipboard content, and so that you can drag multiple records without having to do anything funny, like modifier keys. Now, and honestly, I had all of this done for a demo, and then I noticed that R7 already had this feature in it. So you can look in this how do I demo using R7, and you're rearranging these shapes, going to, I guess you don't need to rearrange those. The blue ones need to go under the blue one. And you can see it's not losing the selection as you're clicking on it, which is brilliant. It's going to make I'm going to be able to refactor a lot of areas in my application due to this. Just the fact that it's not, when you click, it's not losing it. When you have, just like you might imagine that it should work. Well, that's how it works now. So that is a feature that I totally appreciate. And yeah, I mean, the code that's making this possible actually looks kind of ugly, but it's none of it is related to retaining the selection, thankfully. It's all related to just facilitating the dragging of the content. Yeah, so, but not all of us can bounce up to R7 immediately. So there are plenty of ways to make that behavior possible already in your own application, and just to make the drag a bit friendlier. And all of that code is right here. Not going to step through every line of that, but save a little time for any questions for that part of the demo. Yeah, and I think we covered the too much info and then dragging multiple list box rows without modifier keys. As I said, in my parlance, the shadow selection, or you use R7, and there's a link to that blog article with the How Do I database that you can try out for your own. Now, before it gets too long, because I know it's, sorry, I'm making it too long myself, but I'm just going to do a quick look into the city application just to show how we've deployed a couple of these things.
Well, while you're booting that up, there's a question from Ollie about drag and drop with premises, like from 4D into a tiny MCE zone. I assume that's, a 4D contained web area, Ollie? You can nod if that's correct.
Is he nodding?
I'm not getting a reaction out there. Oh, he's vocal. No.
Yeah, shall I speak? Yeah.
Sure.
Hi. I used in EMCA to manage emailing as an email template. And I get some trouble if I want to drag and drop something from a 4D file, but I just want to have the URL of the image. I don't want to get a real picture, and it doesn't work from 4D. And even if you drag and drop from Chrome or any browser, you will see nothing, even with the component, 4D component to see the password. There is nothing inside it, and I don't know how to manage it. If
it's that the web area does not see anything on the pasteboard, or
even
4D
4D, if you use a 4D component, 4D pop to see what is inside the pasteboard, you won't see anything. And I had some discussion with in the forum, and they said it is because it works on premises, and you have no content, in fact, inside. And it will be just updated at the end, depends of the target. So it's not clear in my head because I tried to do it some months ago, but it doesn't work. So
you may want to analyze what's on the pasteboard using those commands in the demo to see what exactly is contained, because just because you can't see it doesn't mean that there might not be data there.
Yeah. Yeah, if you saw it when I was tracing it, there's a lot of other entries in the pasteboard that I didn't set. I set, say a picture or a text, and there's some other, hanger-oners that, for, however they got set in there. I don't know, but yeah, dragging from a web area elsewhere into 4D, that is going to be, yeah, you may have to jump through some hoops, and I'm not quite certain what's capable, and if there's any other scripting that can be added within the web page itself that would react to that. I wouldn't suspect there would be, but then I am far from an authority of what's possible in a web page.
Well, the web areas inside of 4D are kind of unique beasts in themselves.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah, I will dig in it to be more clear about what's happened and what doesn't work. And yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sounds like a happy hour discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Some successful drops from email attachments into 4D demonstrated in 10.14.6 and 4D18R5. So it is possible.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's, yeah, they're just files. So, 4D can play the same way. If we set a file to the pasteboard, it will drag that file wherever you want it to go. For instance, here's one of our city managers. In this case, it's an object manager showing some information, and this is an instance where you can drag out of the application. Again, you see that blink, which is not cool, but I don't know if you guys can all read that, but it's in the background, it's created our own file type. It's .city. Back in the day, we had it actually working where it would set the icon appropriately, but apparently it's not working currently. But still, nonetheless, it's a city file. And a city file these days, if I was to reprogram it, I'd make it JSON. But in this case, it's just record keys. I guess you can't increase the font there, but it says what they are, their objects and their record keys. And then if you were to go away, if you were to do your hotkeys and drag it back onto city, you get a new manager with that selection. Previously in city, they used to use this concept of a briefcase for having these sort of collections or stuff to share with other people, or global collections of records and whatnot. And this is just way more flexible because you can have folders that you're sharing with people, or you're emailing. You can drag from city this selection and drag it to an email, and then you're creating an email with a selection of your records. And what I find nice about this is it's not the record data itself, it's just the records. So at least within our application, you have not every user has privilege to see every record and every field for every record. So again, when it's being opened within city, all of those privileges are being respected. Right. So then we have the concept of a field palette. I mean, you don't have to use a field palette. You can also have all these fields that you're adding onto the view as well. But from all back in the day, you could grab a field and put it in, or to take it off from the view. So sorry, I did a little quick, but you can see that I'm dragging one field and I have it set as a color green. In this case, when I'm dragging the objects, it's blue. And yeah, so you can have a little fun with color coding what's being dragged in your application. Right, so we could go in here and we can drag the thumbnail, which actually drags the thumbnail JPEG. It's not like a text clipping. It's it's nothing fancy, but it's the thumbnail JPEG. However, doesn't mean that it's just the thumbnail. It's also the record itself. So if you drag it into a new manager, it will add the record there. Same thing if you drag this text, it's dragging the same, the record identifier. Right, so that's a basic way that you can show the dragging. However, where it gets really interesting is you can say, all right, so I want to open up like the asset manager, which manages all the pictures and documents that are associated with all of the artworks. You can drag in into the asset manager to navigate the relationships. So you don't have to search. You don't have to go up here and type and select fields or something like that. You can just drag it around. You say, I want to see only the preferred relationship, which is that one. Or I can also say I want to have everything that's related to it, show everything in there, and vice versa. So if I had a new object manager, I want to say, well, what's this related to? Oh, okay, it's American Gothic. And so any of our managers are all drag and drop capable between each other. So if you want to have a selection of objects, let's close this up like here, and you want to go into this is kind of like the artist manager, except it has like other museums and institutions and donors and all that kind of thing. And you want to see anybody who's related to all of these artworks. You can pull it in there and navigate that way. Or you can say, for any exhibition that these artworks have ever been in, you can drag them into the exhibitions. Of course, the drag is now customized for exhibitions, and then you can drag it back to the object manager, and you can see every object that was associated with all of those exhibitions, and so on and so forth. I mean, for places, for managing crates that are on shipments. So if you have a shipment manager, you can see all of the shipments that are related to these exhibitions. And then, you can imagine how that would work going back and forth for generating information, or for digging into the data in a way that's very, once you get used to the drag and drop, it's very easy. What's the word for it makes sense in your brain? It makes a lot of sense. Intuitive, I think that's what I'm thinking of. But anyway, so that there's, you can also use search. You can drag a let's see, that's in the exhibitions. Let's stick with the object manager objects, because that seems, that's again more intuitive. You can say like, all right, I want to see anywhere where a date range includes yada yada. Of course, that's gonna not going to be a very good idea to type that in. Or the title contains certain keywords, right, so it's for building the searches, dragging out of the field palette. Let's see, what am I missing? So say you're going into some of these records, and let's look into Nighthawks here. You can also say, all right, it's not just for navigating between the managers. I would like to associate, let's look at some of the recent items, associate Nighthawks with gallery 242. And so you drag it into that list. So you're using it to edit the records so that you're for very sure, in this case, that you're looking at this record and saying, all right, no, I know that this is in this case, the art vault in the modern wing. You're dragging it from different places. So it's not just in the manager. You can drag it from the header area. You can even look at the hierarchies and don't fail me now, but drag from a hierarchy in a list box into creating the relationship between Nighthawks and the Art Institute of Chicago in that case. So it's just bananas where how much this is deployed in this application. And I know I'm missing stuff. I didn't make a list because I thought it would be easy, but regardless, it's just once you learn what's capable, then it gets really neat and a nice way to work. Okay. A nice way to work with the application. Same thing here. If you go in and you're opening up the asset manager where you've scanned a bunch of pictures and whatnot, and you can drag in and create, add that as a relationship, a representation, so to say, in the object. And likewise with documentation, you can create different kinds of asset relationships depending on what area that you're dragging it to. Okay, well, that was a mouthful. And don't worry, this is all test data. But yeah, so it's there's a lot going on in there with drag and drop, and you can see, one way, we did this, I demoed like this grid view before. So if you have two object managers, these are all just list boxes. So you can have a more traditional style list box here, or you can have the sort of grid view list box. These are actually cells. And so you're dragging into this area, with a different view type, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so it's all just, the underlying drag package is all the same. It's just record references and a source reference that for where it's coming from. And then on the receiving side, you're saying, do I want these city types? Do I want to accept objects? Do I want to accept assets? Do I want to accept place drags here? And then reacting accordingly to navigate in the background. The key is the background. Our data structure is extensive. It's the good old fully normalized data structure. And none of our users have any knowledge whatsoever about any of it, which is good for them. Yeah, but yeah, if you do nothing else other than make your own file type for dragging data or data references directly out of your application, it's already useful. And I'll do one more thing, which I find kind of fun. Like, so if you go into the assets here and you open up one of the assets, within that asset, we show some of the information about that asset. The asset being the picture in this case. But if I want to see more information about the asset, most people don't know you can do this, but I can drag it into BB edit or text editor or whatever, and look at it, look at all of the information. So say, like, when was it synced with the source application, creation dates, all kinds of data information about the files themselves that have been synced with the NetX, which we're using as a sidecar for managing all the for our dams. Again, most people don't want to see these things, but oftentimes I do, or Edgar and myself do, and you can make that accessible without having to have a menu to get to it, or pretty much nothing is going on here, like when I right click or whatever. I think that's it. So that's how we've used some of these ideas. Again, we're using a sort of a glorified, I've adapted, we're not using drag and drop properties anymore, but I'll probably be recoding what we're currently doing with the signal, because it totally represents what what we're doing in the background a lot better than putting in a bunch of JSON data directly within the drop on begin drag. So, you know, in this case, it's when you drag between managers, it's doing nothing at the beginning. It's going back for the data after the drag. And what it shows once it drags is more, you know, it depends on the location. Let's see. So if I have, you know, a totally different set of fields that I'm looking at in this view, the drag data is going to automatically show that. So like, you know, the drag itself is not, doesn't need to know anything about the data that's being dragged. All of that is happening at the destination. Okay. That's enough, right?
Brent, it is more than enough.
Thank you.
Wonderful, though. I've learned more about drag and drop today than I ever knew was possible. I'm glad I stayed to see all of this. I got more respect for 4D's drag and drop. Now I'm going to head out and get lunch. I am starving.
Yeah, thanks everybody
Yeah,
who
me
stuck
too.
around. Yeah, that's I know, you know, got a little bit long, but I appreciate the words of compliments there.
Time
Yeah,
for wrap
anyways,
up.
let me kick back over to the slides real quick, and then we'll be done. Okay. Blah blah blah. That was city. That's me. Questions. Schedule is here, and on December 14th, we're gonna have Eric Louis from 4D talking about deploying across platforms, which is nice. Here are the dates for next year. Please, everyone, consider maybe showing off something you guys have done. And yeah, otherwise, feedback's always appreciated. And thanks for sticking around and listening to me blather for 2 hours.
Thank you, Brent.
All right, thanks everyone at 4D for your support, and yeah, and everyone who supports on Patreon as well. So we'll talk to you guys next time.
Okay, take care.
All right, thanks.
Take care.